Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Tuesday's edition, and we are broadcasting from beautiful Irvine, California. Happy to have you with us today, and I'm pleased to announce that our show is sponsored by Genesis Gold. If you believe, like a lot of us out there, that the dollar's falling apart because this government has over-leveraged itself, you have no faith in the stock market, and you don't even believe in cryptocurrency, then what should you invest your money in? Well, gold, of course. Gold's been around for thousands of years. It's always been the original digital currency out there. But you don't want a tub of gold in your backyard, no. But what you can do, call Genesis Gold Group and set up a gold-backed IRA. The dollar may collapse, the stock market may collapse, but gold has never gone to zero. Call Genesis Gold Group right now, and they'll roll over your risky IRA into a gold-backed IRA, and they will even give you $10,000 of free silver if you qualify. So call them right now, 800-594-9698. That's 800-594-9698. So Joe Visconti, we had new entrants into the presidential primary on the Republican side this week. We've got Mike Pence that joined the race. Christie joined the race, and John Sununu, governor of New Hampshire, quite popular in New Hampshire, decided to take a pass. Joe, with everything going on with new candidates come in, what's your assessment of the state of the race right now?
It's getting crowded. Something we didn't see in 2020, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I just think for the people at home, spectators, voters, you were going to see, the debates. I'm sure Trump will debate everyone else, although there's talk about him not doing that. I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to see that show. So Christie comes in tonight, and he's really gunning for Trump. Again, it's hard to see. Chris Christie and Trump are so close for years. He was supposed to be the vice president. So,
right.
Again, Trump never hit him, but he hit Trump, and he had comments about Trump's activities. So it's been all these people like mosquitoes biting Trump for the last 5 or 6 years. And that's how they get headlines.
Yeah.
The truth is they would get no press, get no headlines, and no money or ratings or poll numbers if they don't attack Trump. So you're seeing this big pile on.
Well, let's talk about the criteria for some of these debates, Joe, because you got to have, I think, 40,000 donors and 1% in the polls. So the people that we'll get in the debates are Trump, DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Senator Scott, Ramaswamy, the businessman, and then I think Mike Pence may get enough donors to qualify, but I think it's going to be limited to those 6. I don't think Asa Hutchinson's going to hit the mark on the 1% or the 40,000 supporters. It's questionable whether Larry Elder is going to get there, and it's really questionable whether Chris Christie gets there. So unlike 2016 when we had 10 or 12 people on stage, this stage could be really limited to 6 people to start out. And Joe, my thought, I think between Trump and DeSantis, you're talking 75% of the vote right there. Again, it looks to me like Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, and Ramaswamy, they could be running for vice president. But this looks to me, again, unless something dramatically changes, like potential Trump indictments, which we're going to talk about later in the show, or some candidate really showing a stellar performance. Joe, it's going to take a lot to unseat Trump and DeSantis.
It is. I was with Nikki Haley at the Prescott Bush Awards dinner with the Connecticut Republican Party in Stamford with almost 600 attendees last Wednesday evening. Nikki Haley, and I yelled out and screamed at the dinner, it's a $300 ticket, but I screamed anyway. She read off a complete platform of Trump. And she claimed it as her own. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And I just yelled out, I screamed out the Trump agenda. I yelled it out. I don't care. And she said the poll numbers will not be the same next year. Of course not. You're going to be zero. But she's smart. And I made all the newspapers. I did my comments, which I got all the headlines inside of saying she would be a great vice president if they can make a deal that she doesn't hit him. Because she's a workhorse. She really is a workhorse.
Absolutely.
That's what vice presidents are good for. She really didn't hit him, but she basically stole his platform. DeSantis is doing the same thing. They're all running on everything Trump did already and Trump has created. That gives you that sense of it's a Gucci knockoff on the sidewalks at Fifth Avenue, instead of going into the Gucci store and getting the real thing. And even if you don't like Trump, you have to realize you bought a knockoff. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. That wasn't the way it was in 2016, where everyone was jockeying for the criteria of why we were running, what's wrong with the country. But she just rattled off everything. She did do one good thing that I really like. She beat up the heck politically out of the Republicans, too. She said it's the Republican Party to blame. Also, you cannot exempt them. They passed it. She went right down the rabbit hole of how much stuff that the Republicans have done with spending and not holding accountable. And so that was nice to see her take. And all I said was, if you're at 1% now, which is the margin of error, or even 3%, you just lost by attacking Republicans. But they did. She was very well received because the Republicans in Connecticut.
Listen, Nikki Haley, she was a good governor in South Carolina. She acquitted herself quite well as the ambassador to the United Nations. She's been around corporate America. So, I mean, there's not a lot of surprises with Nikki Haley, which is why, whether it's Donald Trump redo and we give Trump as a nominee, or if Trump stumbles for some reason and Ron DeSantis becomes the nominee, Nikki Haley and Tim Scott have both positioned themselves well for a VP slot. Obviously, Mike Pence wouldn't be interested in that.
Yeah. Well, Trump is not going to stumble. Trump will run from prison if he has to.
Well,
the cash out is not going to stop. We'll talk about that in a minute, but that's never going to happen. But she brings the women vote. She can help with the women vote. She really can help him with that, where I don't know if anybody else could do that. He did not attack her either. She hasn't attacked him. We've all watched that. So that I have to tell you, those are the two to look at going down the road here. There's no one stronger, I think, for vice president in the country than her. I hate that, a lot of people love her for president, but that's not going to happen.
Well, what about that? What about a lot of people saying, Joe, the dream ticket's Trump DeSantis? Would DeSantis ever take a number two role?
That'll never. I can never see that happen. This is why Christie was knocked out, because he was combative with Trump. Jared knew that and made the call, as we all know, and knocked him out. And I think that was the right thing, because he could get a hair across his butt and all of a sudden just decide to attack. If Nikki doesn't have a deal with Trump, then she wouldn't be able to come, because she's hardcore. She'll chew on nuts and bolts.
Well, let me take you back 2 generations to voodoo economics and the great Ronald Reagan, to everyone's shock, selected George Herbert Walker Bush. Now, George Herbert Walker Bush at the time, for our audience 2 generations ago, George Herbert Walker Bush had a resume to literally kill for. I mean, it was among the most impressive resumes.
But I don't think DeSantis brings to the table anything that Trump needs as a vote. I really don't. He is Trump light or whatever, and she brings something different for VP. And you always need that, and you don't even need the electoral college anymore, because it's a swing state election.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get into that. Since you brought it up, Joe, let's get into it. There's 8, maybe 9 states where this thing's going to be determined: Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, maybe Virginia with Glenn Youngkin now being governor. But Joe, the election's going to be won in those 8 or 9 states.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's the country. And we know that Trump lost by 45,000 votes in 3 states that could have made him president, the way Hillary Clinton lost by 45,000 votes in 3 states. So it is that close. 3 states with a total of 45,000 votes with almost 170 million voters. That's crazy. Yeah. That's a rounding error.
Well, it is a rounding error. Let me throw a little monkey wrench into it too, Joe Visconti. Let's assume for argument's sake that Donald Trump's the Republican nominee and Joe Biden is the Democratic nominee. That's a big if, but let's go into that assumption. Joe Manchin is going to probably run under the No Labels Party. They'll get on the ballot in probably 20 to 25 states. And Joe, as tight as it was, Democrats are petrified that Manchin's going to take the moderate Democrats away from these hardcore leftists, and that will secede the swing states to Donald Trump.
Well, they also, the other side is Christie, which we just mentioned. I'm sorry, Robert Kennedy, which we haven't gotten into him yet. We will on one of your topics, but RFK, beyond the gun, some people hit me because I love him, but with the guns, I'm saying to myself, well, he's against guns completely, Second Amendment, but if your family was wiped out, assassinated with guns, I kind of think you may not like, that whole
right.
Second Amendment thing, but he's makes so much sense, and he talked about the other day how his party, the Democrat Party, has moved into the party of war, the party of censorship, everything that they never were.
Right.
And so there's been a whole, new territory as they seek for new voters. But,
it's not your dad's Democratic Party anymore.
No,
is it?
No. And if he doesn't stay in, I think he's still going to, not like Bernie Sanders. He's going to park a lot of people that may not vote for anybody, because they're going to go, you know what? This guy makes so much sense. He will never run on his own ticket. He'll just bow out. He may or may not endorse whoever, but the reality is the topics he's debating and speaking about they're going to come to the forefront.
Right.
As every time all these indictments, all this crazy stuff with our government and our agencies comes out more and more from the CDC, et cetera, they're going to be like, wait a second, why should we trust anything the government does? We don't trust the media. We don't trust the government. What do you have left for voters to come to vote? They may just check out. RFK basically means stay home if you don't want the truth, and that could hurt the Democrats big time.
Well, Joe, 3 months ago, would you have believed that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could be at 20% polling among Democrats 3 months ago? People would have laughed at you at that point. But here he is today. Now, Marianne Williamson, she's at like 6 or 7%. Eventually, when she drops out, those votes will go to Kennedy. So in reality, Kennedy's probably sitting here polling around 25, 26% when you add in the votes of Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, and he would be higher if you could listen to him. Of course, he had the cancer and the problem with the strokes. It's very hard to listen to. Right. It's just the way it is. It's uncomfortable. You can like him, but it's hard to talk.
Tough.
But
it's
very, very difficult. But what he's bringing to the table for the issues are really not Democrat, Republican. They're constitutional. They're how we run our government, how we run our agencies, how we have freedom of press that's a press that's not lying to you with the tech. Now, everything we've been talking about for 2 years.
Joe,
he's bringing that. Trump isn't bringing that. He's not bringing that. He just kind of calls names. But RFK is really putting on the table the things that are wrong with us.
Joe, share for our audience that's not familiar. Share Kennedy's medical history, because I like you. I was listening to him and saying, what's the matter with his voice? It's hard. He's not the easiest guy to listen to. Yeah. Yeah,
he had operations and all kinds of problems with his throat. This is a medical problem that he discusses, and most people don't know that. So a lot of my friends, I forwarded videos of him, and they're like, not that I'm ever not going to be a Republican, but I like to see a strong Democrat Party. And it is something that people will it may be helpful in a weird way, but I just think he's setting the table for the issues of trusting America, right, trusting your government, and he's beating that. And I think he goes to 35% at some particular point. Biden, and I won't talk about it again with the governor of California, but they can't run Biden. They really can't. Well,
in light of what Comer's doing with the FBI director, and I hate to use the word smoking gun. This isn't a smoking gun. This literally is a top source in the FBI, and to try to discredit someone they've used and paid a lot of money for and gotten information. Joe, I have the feeling, and again, I know Biden's the protected class. Some of these memos date back to when he was running for president and when he was vice president. He's protected. There's no doubt about it. But Joe, this stuff is starting to come out in the open. And if it starts catching the mainstream media's attention, where it's outside of just Fox News, Newsmax, conservative media, AMP, etc., Joe, something's going to come up here. Because if Kennedy's polling in the mid-30s and Biden's weakening, how are they going to run him? I mean, especially
They're
if they.
not, there's no way he runs. I don't care what anybody says. I'll stake every dime I have that he doesn't run, and from one reason or the other, it's impossible for them to keep him in there. But right now they have to, because I'll just call it the establishment. If you had a magic ball and you're looking at it, or whatever, crystal ball, and you're looking at it, you have to realize they want to. And we'll talk about the indictment of Trump that's coming. Then they'll never not indict Trump on anything. He will always be indicted on anything they can get their hands on. No basis of law. Doesn't matter anymore. That's a given. That's coming from D.C. And Biden, you can see he's corrupt. His son is corrupt from the stuff that he had in his house,
Right.
to the things that they've been hiding in Delaware. And so there's not even double standards. But what I'm getting at is, I believe this is a legal battle this summer. This whole summer and probably the fall will be how to coordinate indictments, how to coordinate all the lawyers for Biden and his son as well. If they try to indict Trump and they don't touch Hunter, and they don't touch Biden, and they don't anything,
there's no credibility. There's no credibility at that point. It's done.
This is because it's now so blatant, and they won't touch Biden. I guarantee they won't touch him. They'll protect him right to the end. There's too much blackmail going on. This is why when you have whistleblowers, it's like a little kid, mommy, Johnny did it. Whistleblowers, because you can't find justice, and we have nothing but corruption in our intelligence communities and our law enforcement, judicial, and there are good people too. But they've got to put the whistleblower hat on, and they have been. But we'll get away 4 years for Comer to get any information, or the investigation like Durham for 4 years, and we're in another cycle, another world, and then no one's ever touched in 4 years when that investigation finally ends. Investigated to death is what they're doing. That dog isn't caught hunted.
Well, Joe, bear in mind, had Republicans not won the House, there would be no representative Comer going to the FBI, because he wouldn't be the committee chairman. So
those dogs aren't going to hunt anymore. They're not going to get their turnout, the Democrats. They really aren't. They got RFK biting them. They've got Biden sliding. They've got the double standard. Americans are paying to the nose for everything, and they're fed up.
Well,
really.
Now your thought is, now I talked a little bit about this earlier today. Okay, if Biden's not going, is it going to be Kamala running? Is it going to be Gavin Newsom? I mean, she's less popular than he is. I mean, so do they really literally rip the party apart and run?
Well, look at DeSantis. Look at DeSantis and Newsom. There was a big thing on, I don't know, Drudge or something the other day.
Yeah.
They're at each other's throat
Well,
right now. They want to sue each other. They're kind of telling you who they believe, who the establishment believes will be the candidates. They think Trump. I've heard this from donors. I won't mention names. At the Prescott Bush Awards dinner in Stamford, Connecticut, Greenwich, Connecticut, all the money in America basically is in that county, okay? And they said to me, very wealthy men, they know me from my politics in Connecticut, that they don't think Trump is going to be able to run. And so they're looking for somebody else, because they bought the program that he's going to be indicted. He won't be able to run, different than indictment. And so they're looking towards something else. And so that's the mindset right now. And these are some pretty powerful people I was with, that are Romney people. I was with Romney people, good friends.
Right.
Friends that are very wealthy and powerful, and they're spilling a lot of things about what they think. They're wrong, but they don't know that. So they believe it'll probably be DeSantis and Newsom. That's what they believe.
Well, I mean, now you and I have talked about that possibility. I mean,
they brought that up. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, no, I mean, clearly that could happen. And then again, if you have that happen, I believe Manchin will be the nominee of the No Labels Party, and I think Manchin. Let me put it this way: whether it's Joe Biden, Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris running as the Democratic standard bearer on the left, if Manchin runs, and this is what's got Democrats all flipped out right now, he is going to peel away moderate Democrats. And if you think about those 8 or 9 swing states that we talked about, Joe, you don't have to peel off a whole lot. And then all of a sudden, whether it's Trump or DeSantis, a Republican is winning, the vast majority of those 8 or 9 states.
And here's why: because a good friend of mine ran for governor when I ran several years ago. Dave Walker was the comptroller of the United States of America, the comptroller. Okay, and look his name up and who he is. And he was part of establishing the No Labels Party. Mm-hmm. And what's happening is men of intelligence and wealth, they're not necessarily political, realize no matter if they got Trump or Biden, they don't want any of it, and they're going to be stuck with one or the other. So they'd rather put their energy and the money and be able to, in history, say, I went with Ross Perot, that kind of thing. I went with something that maybe it couldn't win, but I just could not betray my conscience in my mind with my money, my treasury, blood and treasure. And there's a host of them. And they're not doing it out of the vindictiveness of CNN or MSNBC. They really believe in the heart. They want to go back to old America when there was a Marquis of Queensberry rules instead of Trump, King Kong and Biden stumbling downstairs. It's a crap show for them. And I was eating dinner with a lot of them, and I watched, I talked last Wednesday, and I got a good feeling of what they believe. And they're Democrats and Republicans. So they are a uniparty in their wealth. They're all accredited investors,
right,
all parts of hedge fund. I don't care if you're hedge fund, don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. They're partners in law firms, partners in business. These are people, I can't mention names, but I see right in Fairfield County, which is Manhattan. That's what it is. It's Wall Street. And they just don't want that. They want to get down to business, and they have Trump fatigue. And now they don't even know about Biden. They're embarrassed. Yeah. So you're right. There may be a party that comes out, and
I think they're
and Manchin or something.
And I'll tell you why I think that is because Joe Manchin in West Virginia right now, Jim Justice is running for that Senate seat. He's the governor of West Virginia. He's up 25 points on Manchin in polling right now. Now I know it's really, really, really early, but Joe, if you're sitting there, Joe Manchin, what is he, a 2 or 3 term senator? I think 2 terms. He's been there 12 years. If you're Joe Manchin and you are a centrist, say what you want about him, he's a centrist. And if you have a situation where you're going to lose your Senate seat, why would you not take a shot at the presidency from the No Labels Party, knowing how polarized the left and the right are in this country? And I secretly believe, he'll never admit it, but Joe Manchin's political philosophy is a lot closer to either Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis than it is Joe Biden.
Yeah. Well, what's divided us is not necessarily government unions anymore. What's dividing us right now is the children, the transsexual, transgender, all these different things that are hard for people to even deal with. Abortion is not even as weird for people. Talk to voters, and they just have a hard time. Nobody wants to. Everyone wants everybody to do what they want, but now that the kids are involved, it's like, wait a second. I don't care. You want to swing from the chandeliers in your bedroom? Do whatever you want. But don't let the kids see, because they don't have the ability to judge and know. There was a little meme out the other day, a cartoon from the old days. The little kid, I forget his name for the comic strip, and he's like, "Daddy, can I drink? No, you're only 5. Daddy, can I smoke? No, you're only 5. Daddy, can I stay up to 9? No, only 5. Daddy, can I cut off my genitals? Yes."
That's terrible. All right.
I'm just saying it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but that's the agenda that's being shoved, the transgender, transvestite on children, and that is something that is moms. I've said that to say this. It's not dads, it's moms.
Yeah.
And so it's not even Trump, it's moms. Whoever's going to pick up that issue about, everyone should have their rights, but children need to be protected, almost like no child left behind.
Well, that is something both Trump and DeSantis are pounding at every campaign rally. They're pretty consistent on the policies.
That's the women vote. That is the women vote. And by the way, I saw Casey DeSantis do a little, I don't know, 20, 30-second commercial on Facebook. She's really good. I mean, I don't want to see it. I made a comment that said, go back to Florida and raise your kids and stay home. But the point was, she was really good.
She is really good.
She can act. They got her trained. She was really, really good. But I just think they're like Ronald and Nancy. They're just too early. And maybe they want to make their mark now. But I just think they're so good for it.
Joe, I come back to what I've said before. And you mentioned it earlier on the show. Between now and the fall of 2023, a lot of jockeying, a lot of positioning. But you and I both know this. When those votes start in Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina, that's going to winnow this field down to probably 3. Trump will have a ticket out, assuming things don't go absolutely nuts. DeSantis he's got the dough, he's got the backers, and then I think it will be one of the others, whether it's Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Pence.
Well, let's go back historically for a moment. I ran right out of my house here, the phone banks remotely in all of Connecticut for the New Hampshire primary in 2016. I was with Lewandowski, all the players, Trump, everyone. We only pulled a little less than 40%. I stood with Trump and Melania right there 3 feet from them when they won that night in a small room in New Hampshire, and it was just under 40%. There was a lot of people in the race, but he may not pull more than 40 if you get some strong candidates and a lot of money behind them. In New Hampshire, I'm talking about. I know. So I'm on the phone with a lot of New Hampshire people because, I mean, and people don't know that are listening all over the country to Mark's show here. New Hampshire people, so the phone's off the hook in their houses. Every presidential cycle, and even a year or two beforehand, they can't pick the phone out with a robocaller. We're calling, hello, we're calling from Trump. Shut up. And I've done it with the headpiece on. And I can't take another phone call and they hang up. So there's a lot of anger. We'll vote against you if you call them too much because they're so overridden with being that primary state. They take pride in it. At the same time, it's really. But
you know, Joe, in Iowa and to a degree, New Hampshire, they want retail politicking going on. I mean, it's sort of in Iowans and New Hampshireites' blood that they want to meet the candidate, not once, twice, 4 or 5 times. I mean, that's how it works. So I don't know. I do know this, and I talked about it earlier. We never had President Cruz, who won Iowa. We never had President Sanders, who won Iowa. And we never had President Santorum. I mean, when I said Sanders, I meant Mike Huckabee, President Huckabee. So Huckabee, Cruz, Santorum all won Iowa. They never became president. New Hampshire's a different story, though. New Hampshire makes presidents. You've seen it, Joe, over the years. You get a ticket out. Now, it didn't happen with the Democrats. Biden came in like 5th. Okay, and it was only because he went to South Carolina and Jim Clyburn rescued him. And then the party bosses said, you either get behind Biden or you're out of the party. Okay, but on our side, it's a little bit different. You know, you've got that South Carolina primary where you're going to have Tim Scott and Nikki Haley. One of them's going to emerge from that. Even if Ron DeSantis pulls an upset and wins Iowa, you know, does he win in New Hampshire or does Trump win New Hampshire? And then that's where I'm coming. That's where my theory of the case is it's going to be Trump, it's going to be DeSantis. They have the name recognition, they have the money, they have the following, and then one other. That's just how I feel it's going to play out. So, having said that, okay, I think we should talk about a couple other things that are happening here. Look, this thing with Biden and the FBI, Joe, I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, is he so well protected that they're not even going to get the documents out to members of Congress? And Director Wray is going to be held in contempt of Congress? Where does this thing go?
It's, again, it's a black eye for the FBI. And I just think they have their own internal problems. They're watching this and they're seeing the workers, the day workers, what's going on. It's almost like the military in the 70s after Vietnam. The Depression, people are upset. I think the average American wants fairness. They want the umpires to call, if it's a foul, or they just don't want this. And it's been too long. It's been too long. And Trump has been able to be that bad guy. But now it's turning around. They did this to him. Big tech with Elon showed you what they did in the Twitter files. We've watched it all accumulate. People do not trust. At the same time, they can't give up the ship. They got to vote. They have, especially the people with children. They can't. They love the country. So. I think the RFKs and even the Mansions, whoever does get in, those type will make you want to love America again. Trump needs to get back that way and get off of this is a country in decline. He really needs to get off of that shtick he's doing. I was there when he did it, and it's a complete opposite of what DeSantis is doing.
DeSantis is looking forward. Trump's looking backward. You don't win elections looking backward. You win elections with a vision and what you're going to do, which is what Trump was so refreshing in 2016. People said, God, do I really have to take Hillary Clinton? And they didn't like her. And here came Trump. I mean, Joe, you and I both know, I mean, he won 2016. It was pretty close. But throughout a lot of the signs in Pennsylvania where people didn't go, the yard signs were there for Trump. The enthusiasm was there. It's like, we can't take any more establishment people, and Trump was that breath of fresh air. But he's got to focus going forward, or you're going to literally have a race between Trump and DeSantis, and that will go on for a while.
Well, the big problem is it's turned into, in 16 and even 20, it's the world and all the problems in the world and all the issues, open borders, et cetera. But now it's our government agencies are on the ballot.
Right.
Our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, our own way of life is on the ballot now. It wasn't like that in 16 and 20.
Right.
It's not, it's not COVID. It's not even Russia. It has nothing really to do. People aren't buying that war, like it or not. People just aren't buying it.
Right.
And they'll go along with whatever for the country. But the reality is somebody blew up that pipeline. And that somebody was us, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And we're just doing so many things covertly. We've been doing them, starting wars for too long. Everybody knows it now. It's common knowledge. And now we're looking at our own, our own discipline, our own. This is like boot camp right now. People have, they're feeling emotionally and physically upset about themselves, about their country. And the big problem is, like the 2020 election, even if you didn't think it was stolen, what's the remedy for any? There's no remedies for any of these things. The judicial system, the intelligence communities, there's no remedy. Our states doing what they want with selling drugs, illegal immigration, sanctuary cities, and then doing what they want with the voting laws without following their constitutions. All of it's all been broken.
Right.
Client attorney privilege, all of that's been broken. We really, for the people that are listening and that know, it's accumulative, yet they don't want to look back either, but it's in their face. So who can articulate how we get out? How do we make America not great again? How do we make America
again?
Yeah, America. Well, a better word is that how do we make it have a single standard? We have one flag. We don't carry two flags for the country. Double standard. Standard is always called a flag. Well, you've got a double standard.
Joe, you could have confused me. Isn't there pride flags all over New York City right now? I mean.
Yeah. Segue. I have a flag. It'll be here today. I bought it on Amazon. LGBTQ for Trump. It's going right on my tree. I'll send you a picture when it goes up. I don't care what you do and who you are, as long as you're for Trump, or at least for America. And the gays against grooming, listen, they get it. They realize that, listen, we like our lifestyles, but children, until they have the ability to make their mind up or understand, then they can't.
The issue is shoving it down people's throat.
Well,
let people.
Also,
go ahead.
I was listening to the Beatles with my friends, and we had some of the early Beatles on. And I said, we went right back. We're 66 years old. We're back to being 7 years old, walking around transistor radio. I said, these children are going to have these memories of how they're feeling from either bullying or being told, are you a boy or a girl? This is going to be a lifetime, like when we did, good feelings, or even being fearful of bullies when we were kids. They're going to have this thing on them. Security in schools, not knowing if someone's going to come in and shoot them. They're carrying so much fear within these schools, children, that we don't know that we're adults.
Right.
And so why add more pressure and stress?
Well, we're going to call you Mr. Segway because you started talking about shooting. Joe, Chicago's turned into a war zone. I mean, I got the statistics here. 682 murders in the last year. 489 of them were black-on-black crime. Where is BLM in all this? I mean, I don't see them anywhere out there.
They're going bankrupt for buying too many mansions. It was just a front organization to basically cause riots and burn things, and couple that with COVID rules and regulations and just create a mess. Because if there's a smokescreen and there's chaos, distractions, misdirection, you can either steal or get people out or get people motivated, because even burning motivates people. We're going to vote. So all that was theater department.
Right. No, I hear you. And look, we got a couple minutes left. I want to get your thoughts on a couple things. We've talked about Trump and the potential indictment. Do you think Jack Smith indicts Trump over this classified document case, or do you think, as Trump lawyers said, he may not be indicted? Handicap it for me here. I got about a minute left.
It depends on how hard the Republicans press Biden.
Okay.
It's a quid pro quo that's not spoken.
Good point.
And the more they press on Biden's letter of corruption, which everyone knows they're corrupt, his son, the laptop from all of it, as long as they press that, and this is important, I know you got to go here, but Comer is basically saying we're not going to let 4 years go by and not have this information.
Right.
We want to investigate this ourselves because we're not fun. What can we do? Unfund you? So they want to drag it out. I think they indict him. I think they do. If they can, they will. I said that earlier in the show.
Then do they indict? Does Hunter Biden get indicted on a quid pro quo basis?
I think no. I think nothing happens to them. Nothing.
Not even Hunter. So you're saying they're going to indict Trump in this document case? Boy, I got to tell you something. For a man,
and he's in Georgia with Kerry Lake this week at the GOP speaking. But you could have end of the summer or maybe even August or July, they can indict him there again on BS.
Yeah, I know. I mean, at a point,
it's the gift that keeps on giving as far as the establishment is concerned. At least they're not.
Yeah, and that could, again, we're not saying it's going to, but now you got the case in New York, you got a case in Washington, D.C., which are not going to be fair juries. You got a case in Atlanta. That's going to be hard to get a fair jury in the city of Atlanta, too. But having said that now, does the legal piece overwhelm the message? I don't know. Well, we always said Trump supporters are loyal, but to win that general election, at a certain point, some independents, which are, right now it's close. If the election was Trump-Biden, it's plus or minus 1 point. If it's DeSantis-Biden, it's the same thing. It's 1 point away, despite Joe Biden being way underwater in his approval ratings, Joe. So, I'm with you.
But the bottom line is DeSantis and Christie and the rest of them, they all got in because they really believe what I heard at the Bush Center. They believe he's not going to be able to run. They could put him in the case in New York. They could have a trial next February after Super Tuesday for Trump, and they could basically say that's it, you're guilty, and we're putting you in Rikers with a Secret Service standing outside while you're in Rikers and while you wait appeal. They can do that. Yeah. There's no governing authority anymore. This is what I'm trying to say. There is no more good guys with power or hats. There's no more ethics or morality or fairness or rule of law anymore. So they could do that right in New York by itself, and it's there in Rikers. Okay, and this is what they want. The other ones basically bolster that he's a criminal, and that those other cases just try to make a whole atmosphere of everything he's done is wrong, and for their base, not for Republicans, but for their base. Yeah. They need to keep their base voting for Biden, who's completely unconscious. Yeah. That's what this is about.
Oh, I know. And I want to close it out on that, Joe, and I agree with what you just said there, and I want to tie this in to something local we've experienced here in Southern California. I'm counseling a family who lost a loved one from a manslaughter case. Accident, son was killed as a result of a young lady in an automobile manslaughter case. This case, I had an opportunity to meet with prosecutors, Joe, up in LA County. They've lost roughly a third of the prosecutors in LA County. The jails are completely overcrowded. The minute someone's given a jail sentence, immediately 50% of it's knocked off. Criminals are being let loose who have records, and they're going out committing other crimes. Now, in this case, the person that perpetrated this case didn't have a previous criminal record, but for killing someone, it's being prosecuted as a misdemeanor. The DA's office came out and said they could not believe it. They said, our hands are tied. People were losing the police officers, we're losing counselors, we're losing district attorneys, and this family had to go through 3 district attorneys who quit, one of which was really good, and finally the head DA said, look, I'm not going to give you a new assignment, I'm going to handle your case. But Joe, having firsthand knowledge of seeing and advising this family through some legal assistance we were able to gather for them, what a mess as a result of these liberal policies happening in LA, and you see it across other cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I mean, it is like we're living in 2 separate countries here where, like you mentioned, San Francisco, you can steal up to 900. They don't even throw you in jail. What's the end result? Stores are closing in San Francisco. And what does that do, Joe? It makes things worse. So you're right. I mean, with all of these things, and you've mentioned that when you talked on the show last week, sometimes a lot of people are close to the edge. They're hoping that things get back. But boy, if it doesn't tilt the right way, Joe, a lot of them are just, they're giving up.
Which you'll see the people take the law into their own hands. I think you'll even see criminals who have a morality or at least a conscience go, you know what? I'm a thief or a murderer. I've done this and done that. But you see it in movies, but I can't take this anymore because my cousin got shot and stuff. And they take to the streets. It won't be, I don't believe it'll be the white supremacist people that the government tries to say would do all this justice and vigilante. It'll actually be from the crime will come morality, something that you wouldn't consider. And the change will really come that way. Because there'll be a code, and it's in the cops. What are they going to do? They just have to back away.
Joe, on that great note,
also
on that great note, Joe, we're out of time. But again, I want to thank you again, Joe, for coming on, sharing your views. Again, this is crazy times out there, folks, and Joe is close to the average person out there. I know you're a man of the people, Joe. I know you go out and talk to a lot of people. You press the flesh. So again, your input that you share with our audience is always greatly appreciated. Thank you again for joining me today. Okay, folks, that's it for today. We will be back on Thursday, and we will tackle these issues. We'll cut through the propaganda and hopefully keep this country on the straight and narrow. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for listening. See you on Thursday.